The gentleman that runs my son's gymnastics gym, very nice guy. He did corner me the other day and he said, hey, I need your help. I was like, what? His niece is getting married and he wants me to write his speech for him. And I looked at him and I said, you know we're on strike, right?
The wedding speech writers
and
are
he's
on
like,
strike?
no, he's like, I'll pay you under the table. And I was just like, that's fine. I'll write
That's
it.
not even a guild thing.
Exactly.
Why did he pick you?
Because I'm funny.
To write his
got a podcast. Fuck.
Does he know how late he's going to get his speech? Does he know he's going to be on stage before you actually bother to write anything?
I'm going to fax it to the hotel while he's there. Don't worry, it'll be there. It'll be there in time.
Quiet, please.
Are you saying I have a tendency to bring things late to the party?
The only thing I'm going to say is your scripts are fresh.
They're very fresh.
4.
I like the ink to be wet.
3, 2.
The Apple Company presents a truly terrible podcast. Welcome to Nonsense, episode number 21. I'm Jeff Parker.
And I'm CJ Little.
This is our take on the week's business, tech, and entertainment headlines. This time, we'll look at ways current technology is cheating and the pinballing effects of AI growth.
I love a good pinball segment right up there with aircraft maintenance.
It's Geek Pride Day.
What?
Socially awkward tech nerds unite.
Everybody stay in your basements
Sure.
and just unite online on a Discord server.
Because we're not getting together.
No, we don't like people. I don't want to see anybody.
I'm proud to be a geek and a nerd.
Yeah.
It's also National Brown Bag It Day.
What does that mean?
Save some money and eat healthier today. Put your lunch in a brown bag. Don't go out to eat.
Shouldn't that just be most days?
Probably if you wanted to be healthy. How's your week going?
So far, so good.
What's going on?
As you know, I love Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Been here most of my adult life.
Yeah.
I generally think all zoos are just bad.
How do we get to here? LA's a big zoo?
Hate the zoo.
There you go. Now
Terrible
that's
zoo.
what I was looking for.
Went to the zoo this past weekend.
How those things had anything to do with each other.
It's the saddest zoo of any major metro zoo I've ever been to.
The San Diego Zoo is probably the nicest zoo.
Still kind of sad.
Possibly the nicest zoo in the world, and it's awful.
Yeah. Well,
animals.
awful. It's terrible for the animals.
Yeah, animals don't belong in those sorts of situations.
We have opposable thumbs now, so we make them do whatever we want.
Yeah.
That's pretty much how it works.
And we have the guns and we have all that stuff.
So look, we can stare at you for a while, or we can eat you. Those are basically your options.
You know, one of our ancestors developed lots of big muscles, could climb trees, do all kinds of things, and we spent the time working on our little brains.
Yeah, we did.
We don't have the giant muscles gorillas have. We can't do the things gorillas can do.
No.
But boy, it turned out the brain was the right way to go.
Yep, we can carry the one. That's basically
carry the one.
They carry the bunches of bananas. We carry the one.
And then put them into our zoos, which is
terrible.
Hopefully we get past. They'll get past circuses mostly.
My kids don't even really care. Like I took them and they were excited about the alligator, which apparently both alligators at the LA Zoo were pets that got released into the wild.
Oh, how awful.
Which is crazy. Or maybe one was released and one was some, but still, they were pets.
Right.
They started as pets.
Non-indigenous animals, folks, don't do that.
Also, they grow to be like 1,000 pounds.
Right.
How are you going to feed that bill? Like, what are you going to do?
Are you going to pay that bill when you feed them? Yeah.
That's what I meant. Those words. It's a contraction. I cut out the stuff in the middle. I had an apostrophe.
The fluff you cut out.
I try to self-edit. And then my kids wanted to go to the playground. I went to the zoo, so they go to the fucking playground at the zoo.
Yeah, they should probably replace the rest of the zoo with the playground.
Anyway, that was my exciting part of my week. How
Going
about
out
you?
with your kids, huh?
Yeah.
It was my birthday yesterday.
It was.
I have lived 30 years now twice. That's how I like to think of it.
The first was a test run.
Maybe.
The second was the real one.
Maybe. The sweet thing was that your nanny was occupied with some graduation somewhere.
She was.
And so that we could go out to dinner,
you
did. Flew your mother-in-law in from Arizona.
I did, and boy, are my arms tired.
So that we could go out to dinner. I thought that was very sweet. A guy cannot ask for better friends than I have. I'm an incredibly lucky human, and I will never forget that.
She's very kind to do that.
Yeah.
I will say after about 2 days, she's like, get me the fuck out of here.
Oh, she doesn't like being around the kids after a while?
No, she loves being around the kids.
She doesn't like being around you guys.
Well, tomato, I think, really there.
Okay.
After a couple of days, I can just see her. I'm just like, you're not used to these banshees of my children. She does great for a couple of days, and then she's just like had it. And
Sure.
then, so next month, I'm going to leave them with her for 2.5 weeks. We'll see what happens.
She wants more?
She said she wanted them for a week, and I said, how about 2? And then she just sort of looked at me, and then I said, well, you get them for 2.5.
Where are you going for that? She needs to take care of them.
We're
going to
go. We're gonna go visit Europe.
Oh, how
countries
lovely.
in
And you
Europe.
don't want to take the kids to see it?
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Fair enough. Let's get to our headlines.
We should.
China bans Micron chips, claiming they pose a risk to national security.
So Micron is their TikTok?
Micron's a company, a U.S. company.
I believe so, yeah.
And they make mostly memory chips, and
Yep.
I think China makes lots
Yep.
of memory chips too. So there's really no loss to them for not using Micron chips.
This just sounds like competitive advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of did that to Huawei too. We
Well,
pretended
that was a little
Huawei
bit different.
What is different about that?
That was actual processing, like actual hardware, routers and things.
Yes,
this is
fine.
This is just memory.
Okay, as far as you know.
There's not like a RSS feed of it just dumping out all the
there
memory.
There might be. You don't know. How do you know?
There was, funny you were talking about
Like
this.
I said, there's no sign that Huawei did anything. There's no sign TikTok has done anything.
Sure.
There's no sign that Micron has done anything.
All you're saying they're all the same?
Yeah, we're just getting like, up in arms at each other for no reason.
I think there's a little bit of a difference here, though. A little bit, at least. Because China can ban Micron. At least they have a backfill.
Oh, sure.
We have a TikTok backfill. Although you and I could start TokTik.
TokTik?
Think about it. Don't say no. Just think about it, okay?
Okay.
It's all just only air fryer videos. I'm like, Jeff, you kind of missed the mark.
That's gonna be really boring for the kids who like to do the dances.
Totally the kid.
Micron is building a $100 billion chip mega fab in New York.
Yeah, they're doing some pretty cool stuff, actually. Micron's been around for a minute. Like those guys.
232 layer NAND SSD.
Yeah, that is a lot of
My
layers.
Lord, that's cool.
Imagine if you tried to do that with like 30-year-old tech. You have a SSD card that's a foot thick. I don't know why they banned it. I got to believe it was just to prop up Chinese sales and feel like they're doing something.
I think
to
they're
us
just
we're
swinging
doing to
back
them.
at us for Huawei
Sure.
and TikTok and whatever else we claim that they're doing stuff
Bunch
with.
of cameras. Wasn't it like hike vision cameras? We said we can't use those in government anymore either. Or Huawei.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
One of them got banned as well. Which I kind of actually think makes sense because a bunch of that shit phones home and you don't know what it's sending.
Even U.S. manufactured cams like that, who knows where your data is
Sure.
going? It's got to be open source, or at least flash it with something that's open
anything-
source so you can see.
I gotta say, anything with an IP stack on it, especially if that firmware is not open, you don't know what the hell it's doing.
It's no way to know.
The Asus routers over the weekend. Did you hear this story?
Went silent.
They all went. Yeah. Well, I don't know if I call it going silent. They were screaming at the top of their lungs because they ran out of memory.
Yeah, but they weren't they weren't sending or receiving anything.
They weren't working. I guess from that perspective, they went silent. But it was like it seemed like it was completely innocuous. It was some update for like AV signatures that bricked the thing.
Right. By the way, a lot of people don't have auto update on, and it still somehow managed to auto update, and they had the same
Pull the
problems
definitions.
with it.
Sure, yeah. You want your router to just route traffic.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that thing to fail. That thing should work forever.
Of course. I don't actually need it to work forever, but I do need it to work for its 5-year lifespan or whatever it is they tell me it is.
As long as that
I
thing's
can
got
replace
LED
equipment.
on
I'm
it.
a big boy. I can swap out to new equipment. That's fine.
Yep. My Sony's my first router.
And it's
Big blinky lights on it. Yay, look at this. I programmed it. Yay. Good job, Jeff. You see the packets move.
I think this is sort of like China's deciding it's getting off of ARM chips.
That seems like a bad idea. Where are they going to go to?
They're going to RISC-V.
Oh, they're going to RISC-V.
Open source
yeah.
RISC-V. Yeah.
All right. Well, good job, Micron. Nice knowing you.
Oh, it's 10% of their revenue. It's not going to kill them. It's not nothing, but they're going to be fine. And by the way, they are making really, really cool stuff.
Ed's not going to make his bonus this year. 10% gets sucked out. So much for that pool, Ed. Sorry, buddy.
Twitter accuses Microsoft of misusing its data, foreshadowing a fight over AI.
Yeah, I think this is one of many stories we're going to see like this.
Before everybody locked down their APIs, you could suck down everybody's data and use it freely in your AI training. And apparently that's not going over well now.
Yeah, that's going to be a battle.
All of those photographs that they were sucking down from Getty Images was all training data. And
Craig's unhappy.
Yeah, Getty Images is upset about that. Reasonably so, I guess.
Yeah, I would be angry if my business was going to die soon, too. I'd also try to do something about it.
There's nothing he can do about it.
I disagree.
It's too late.
Make your own. You have
Make
a
your
bunch
own
of
AI.
data. Sure.
Yeah. Your AI is only going to be one of many.
Or
There's going to be
lead
so many
in
of
an
these.
attribution system so that you can participate and say, I have a valuable asset.
You can download an
They've done neither
AI
of those
system
things.
now for making images.
I have it on my laptop.
Exactly. That's
That
not even
works.
connected to the internet.
It's great.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, cat's out of the bag.
How in the world is Getty Images going to compete in that landscape?
I still think they can get in front of it. I still think they've got a great asset that they could get in front of and say, look,
Training data?
Yeah, we want to build a system that allows us to participate in this. But they're not taking that view. The view is we have all of this. It's ours. You must not touch
Well,
it.
there's a whole lot of other pictures. If they don't contribute their pictures for training data, someone else will.
Steamrolled. That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to put their head in the sand and get steamrolled.
I don't see how exactly they get around this.
5-10 years to be like, Getty what?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's the museum, right?
The Getty Images Museum.
Yep.
Yeah.
On top of a very small hill. Like everything on the wall has the watermark on it. This is a great example of not embracing the tech that's coming.
It's hard for them to embrace it because it means the end of their income.
Well, okay. There used to be a company you've never heard of.
Yeah.
Some of the listeners might know. There used to be a company called Kodak.
Yes. No, I get that. I get that.
The Kodak could have been the main driving force behind the digital sensor.
They invented it.
They invented it. They had it. They sat on it. And they're like,
But Getty Images did not invent the image. No. They have no special patent like that. They didn't invent AI image creation.
But they could lever that asset to be something forward-looking.
How would you do that? Because there's going to be so many there's going to be freeware systems. Yeah, exactly.
Did you say freeware?
Yeah, am I old?
Is it 1993?
Is it not called,
did you download it off of BBS?
Is it not called Freeway?
I got my Dolly E. I downloaded it off Westside BBS. It took 27 weeks to download it.
So is the word freemium gone? Is that not a thing anymore?
I think freemium is still a thing. Freemium implies you've got like a
free and premium. Yeah, sure. What? I can break this apart for you.
You're amazing. You should be in the spelling bee. Sarcastic doodle or whatever. That would be your spelling bee. Sarcastic doodle. Freeware. Wow. That's incredible. If we keep doing this, by the way, it's going to be like Beetlejuice, and RMS is going to be at your door knocking, coming in to correct us about free beer versus...
Richard Stallman's coming over.
The ghost of RMS.
He's not dead.
Well, he's still a ghost.
It's not the ghost of RMS. It's
the ghost shows up first.
It's actually a person. Have you ever seen his rider for what he requires to make appearances?
Yes, his rider is the best.
Yeah.
And by best, I mean like mildly creepy.
It's mostly to keep people from making things too fancy.
Yeah. His rider is actually one of the most humble.
Right.
And I love how he's
kind of cool.
I prefer not to drive far.
Oh, sure.
I'm happy to sleep on a couch.
Right.
It's like the nicest rider you've ever seen. He's like, I don't care what color the M&Ms are.
Basically, the title of the rider should be "Don't Make a Fuss."
Yeah, exactly. If you could just put some hay in the corner, that would be lovely for me to lay on. I don't need anything. Some power would be nice. Maybe a connection to the internet. It would be awesome, by the way, if like there's this big reveal on Stallman's 70th where he's like, by the way, I have like $6 billion. I invented Excel. Didn't want to tell anybody.
I sleep on people's couches when I travel.
Totally.
But
yeah, well, otherwise I'd only have $6.9 billion instead of my 7.
New York City public schools remove ChatGPT ban.
This is great.
A step in the right direction.
Totally.
The problem is so many school districts will follow what New York City schools do. If they're afraid of ChatGPT or chatbots generally, that's a problem because that's kind of what kids need to learn how to use it.
What about my new cheating GPT? Are they gonna
cheating GPT?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about in this episode.
I like that.
GPT's only for cheating.
It doesn't work in any other way. And the only thing it does is it keeps rewriting until it passes all the detectors.
It runs through all the detectors. Yep.
And just keeps rewriting its text until it gets through.
Yep.
That's coming.
And then it puts a couple sentences up to Mechanical Turk just to get a human and put something in there.
Stand by. That's going to come.
Totally. I call it TokTik. I'm out of names.
Just the one name for everything?
The one name for everything. It's Elon Musk's X. That's what they call it, TokTik.
Meta is working on a new chip for AI.
Oh, that'll be great. So it'll be able to take all my personal information and then just automatically send it to Meta.
It's what they do.
It'll be able to process thumbs up and likes twice the speed.
It's not set to come out until 2025, which tells you they're licensing something.
Sure, of course.
No way they're doing that fast.
The Metaverse is working out pretty well for him so far, isn't it?
Metaverse is the thing where he talks and it echoes?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that what's happening there? When I want some alone time, I'd go to the metaverse.
When I want to go to the entire world, it's just me. It's great.
There were people buying, was this a thing for a while? People buying real estate in the metaverse?
Yes, I think so.
And how did that work exactly?
No idea. I also have a bridge I'd like to sell for the folks
Isn't there like an infinite amount of real estate in the metaverse? It's just made up to begin with.
You just Malik Moore.
Right.
Sell it off. And I'm no programmer, but that's what I heard.
Well, you were a programmer 30 years ago if you're Malicking.
Well, hey. I like to manage my own memory.
Speaking of Meta, they were fined a record $1.3 billion over EU user data transfers to the U.S.
Yeah, don't fuck around with the GDPR.
That's kind of cool that somebody is finally in the game of policing privacy.
The part that I always find the best about GDPR is the upper bounds, the caps on this thing.
Yes.
Are like,
explain what GDPR is.
Oh, it's the General Data Protection. Is that what it stands for?
Something like that. Yes.
It's an EU construct that's really designed to give users control over their data.
Right.
So you can request deletion. It requires the data stay on EU servers. Right. There's a whole bunch of myriad of stuff, most of which I've fortunately forgotten.
Not just that it stays, but that it's not copied also to some other server.
So they really have done this to give EU citizens some protection around their data, which is great. I think is great.
And by the way, that protection usually leaks over to the rest of us eventually because the U.S. wasn't doing anything about it.
California tried to jump in the mix, but that's arguably even a bit more of a mess. But
because it's not clear what they want.
Exactly. But much like with, CARB, California Air Resource Board, we had no good emission standards 30 years ago in California.
But you work it out eventually. It's exactly right. You got to start somewhere.
I mean, if you remember, these used to be cars that were 49 state and then the California car. And then very shortly after, the manufacturers were like, oh, it's a 50 state car.
Yeah, sure.
Which is basically just a California car now that you can sell in all states because it works in California. So the upper bounds of GDPR fines, I believe, are 20 million euros or 4% of your global turnover, whichever is greater.
Wow.
Which is not a small number.
Yeah, they're not fooling around.
No. 1.3 billion euro is that's some real change.
Potentially millions of Android TVs and phones come with malware pre-installed.
That's convenient. You don't have to install that malware yourself.
You don't want to have to put that in yourself.
Exactly.
This was kind of an interesting story, and it was like, hair on fire with all the, because there's zillions of Android devices, cheap Android devices. They don't all
using some shitty image somewhere.
Yeah, they don't all use Google's Android. They don't use OnePlus's Android. They don't use Samsung's Android. And so they're taking something that's open source, they're modifying it to whatever, putting it onto their chip.
Putting it back up.
Now it's closed source, but they've included their malware so they can track you or whatever. By the way, this article, which came out, today, yesterday?
Something like that.
I looked up their sources for the article, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see the actual source of the article, and it came out in January of 2018.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So they're really worried about something that happened 5 years ago.
Yeah, they're really closing that 1,500-day exploit, aren't they? Jumping right out, 1,800-day exploit. Sorry, I'm just doing the math in my head here.
I do like that Google gets in front of this stuff, and they themselves produce reports when they find these sorts of errors and problems. These reports, by the way, are not even on the Google report anymore. They're gone.
That's crazy.
Also, they were on devices that I've never heard of, and I'm pretty up to speed on what's going on in the Android world. They were small manufacturers at best.
Yeah.
Apple reveals some serious security bugs, so be on your guard. This is more bugs in
like 3.0
phones.
days.
Yeah, 3.0 days, which is pretty amazing.
Update your phone.
Keep your phones up to date. This is in WebKit, which is the browser.
Nothing uses WebKit. Oh, wait. Everything uses
Apple,
WebKit.
everything uses WebKit.
Sorry.
This needs to...
I meant everything when I said nothing.
Right. Google and Apple used to develop WebKit together, and then Google said, no, we got to make some more progress on this faster, so they split directions, but Apple is still using WebKit. So you need companies to be upfront about their security flaws. And
you would hope so.
You need them to come forth waving their arms and saying, this is a problem, you need to update.
Put it out right away.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, enough with the headlines. Up next, CJ is going to talk about faking it with tech.
Fake it till you make it, baby. Have you used technology to cheat on things before? Unfair advantage, maybe?
I have no idea what I've ever done that with, but I would love to know what this means.
Over time.
I'm only saying that because I heard the teaser for your segment, so I want to know what this would be.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the statute of limitations is passed. We used to be able to store formulas that we're supposed to memorize in like physics class in your calculators.
Yeah.
Then they'd be like, well, you can only have one page of it.
Right.
And I'd be like, well, all right, watch this. I'll just buy a bigger calculator with a bigger page. I was the only one who had like a TI 92, not 92, was it the TI? I had the big fat one you had to hold with two hands.
It's like my kid gets to take in one 3x5 card to certain tests.
So you write in 3-point font.
Yes, he writes in the smallest little, you can't
imagine
how small it is.
When I had teachers that would do that, you'd have like whatever, 3.5-inch card.
Yeah.
I'd bring a microfiche machine with me.
Yeah, pretty much.
So bring it in and set it down right next to me.
Got to be able to read it back.
Watch this. Got to be able to see it. It's really hard to get a microfiche reference in on this show. I'm glad I was able to. No, look, technology's always been used to cheat, right? I mean, that's been...
Is that true?
Yeah, forever. That's like, you want to win the sports book, you just have somebody there that texts you the message from, whatever happened at the sporting game, and you know it before they do. Do you ever see The Sting?
Yes.
I mean, that's basically
But that was a long time ago. Was that technology? That's like dot it, dot it, dot. Was that like Morse code,
that was technically
right?
technology for then. I mean, all of 3 bits per second. So I kind of thought it'd be interesting to highlight some of the more recent fakes and cheating that I've seen, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Going on now. Stuff going on now.
Yeah, nowish.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is not an extensive, exhaustive list, right?
No,
I mean, This is happening everywhere. My favorite so far has been Samsung. So you know how Samsung always promotes these pictures of the moon? You seen these?
In their ads for their phones.
The phone that has like some...
Because you're supposed to be able to take cool pictures.
300x zoom.
Nighttime pictures, right?
Yeah, totally. Turns out that's all fake. So
how did they fake the moon? They actually took a picture that they didn't take with the camera?
They are using, quote, computational processing to augment the photo to look like a moon.
So they're putting in their own moon.
They're faking it. Well, I mean, presumably with the moon, but they're still using, it's not optics coming in and hitting a sensor. It's optics coming in hitting a sensor that they then
replacing the moon that's in there with their moon.
Yeah. So there was somebody on Reddit, they had a post where they basically demoed this and showed how this was happening. They created an intentionally blurry photo of the moon, displayed it on a computer screen, and then photographed the image using a Samsung S23
and it cleaned it right up.
And it cleaned it right up.
Sure it did.
And you're just like, oh, all right, well, that's totally fake, 100%.
Right. But how much of the stuff in these cameras anyways is being altered by AI to look better?
That's kind of the point, right? Is you're trying to figure out what the pixels should have been that were there that didn't get to the sensor. And it turns out with the moon, you actually know, since it looks the same to all of us at all of the time.
It's a big blurry ball of yarn on most phone cameras.
And I kind of look at that and I kind of go, well, yeah, it's cheating, but like, did you get a picture of the moon out that looks like the actual moon? I think that was the intent. So what's nuts about this to me is that there was no like upscaling of a blurry photo, taking pixels to try to retrieve lost data.
Well, you only have the same optics. The optics don't change.
But it's not like
they
just put a new moon in. They just copy and pasted a new moon in.
Sure.
which is kind of great. I feel like my kids would want to do this to me. They'd just be like, nope, new dad.
I want a different dad.
Yeah, just new dad.
Our dad is Brad Pitt.
Yeah. All right. We had a good run.
Sure.
Good luck. See how funny he is. But it begs the question of like, what's a fake photo, right? And I think that's kind of tricky.
I think that's a fake photo. That strikes me as a fake photo.
That would you call a fake
you
photo?
did not capture all those pixels at that moment.
So Samsung said it uses a, quote, detail improvement engine function.
Well, sure.
It's
a nice way of saying this really wasn't your photo.
To, quote, effectively remove noise and maximize the details of the moon to complete a bright and clear picture of the moon.
Now, the moon's different colors at different times. Does it match the color of the moon that
I don't
was
know,
in
probably.
your picture?
I mean,
Does
I
it go
think-
to that much detail?
I think you just put a cartoon moon in every single time. Just be like just some hand-drawn
I'd be fine with that.
cartoon moon, right?
Then it's just a filter like on, one of the TikToks or
Yeah, but like, okay, let's go back to like even gels. You put a gel in front of your lens when you take a photo. Did you?
No, in front of my light, but never
in front of your light.
lens.
Yeah, sorry, in front of your light, right? Or a gradient filter, whatever.
Sure. Already, if I have lights out, I'm artificially lighting the subject.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like, where do you draw the line on that? I mean, it's making an adjustment for the landscape photo that you're taking. I get that, or a polarizer, or whatever the thing is.
Yeah. Oh, polarizer is a great example.
Great example, right?
Yeah.
Like you're taking I guess there you're taking some subset of the light that's coming in.
Right.
With a gradient, you're actually just reducing some of the light, but you could put a colored gradient on, right? Like that exists.
Right.
So,
by the way, your eye has so much more dynamic range that your eye doesn't need the gradient.
totally. Yeah, I get that. But then again, where do you draw the line? Or you take in the photo and then you go Photoshop up, take off some blemishes or make it a little sharper or whatever. It's still a photo, right? It's been heavily, even maybe lightly touched. So I don't know.
Oh, sure.
I'm curious where the line is. You're a photographer.
Well, sure. I actually, because there's pictures of you and I for this podcast where we're standing in front of the yard.
Yeah.
And it's green and they're just shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
The iPhone makes that green so horrifically garish bright that I throw it into GIMP.
Yeah.
And I have it 2 layers. One of them is our faces and the other one is the big, horrible background.
Sure.
And I turn the brightness on all of that way down. I turn the color saturation way down so it actually doesn't look crazy.
For our non-GNU listeners, he doesn't have like a man in the back room with an orange ball in his mouth called the GIMP that he gives us to.
That's true.
It's actual software. I mean, he does have the man. We just don't call him GIMP. We call him Freddy.
It's like Photoshop. It's like Photoshop, only better.
Only better. It's like a cheaper, better Photoshop that doesn't crash.
I don't think you can get cheaper than the actual Photoshop. It's super inexpensive.
Photoshop is?
Yeah.
Really?
Are you kidding?
I don't know.
Have you licensed the Creative Suite in a while?
I do.
First of all, it always crashes. So the cost,
Mine doesn't crash.
The labor cost
goes up.
Enormous. But the actual cost of licensing it is practically nothing.
It is pretty awesome.
You get an enormous amount of software for almost no money. You don't want to use the software, but it doesn't cost a lot of money.
It just sates you that you have it. You want to know you have it.
It's the old joke of oh my God, this food is awful and such small portions.
I call that Tuesday. I use their type manager quite often because I'm a Creative Club member. Like that's hard to emulate.
No,
and get
there's
elsewhere.
great type managers.
Really?
Oh, I'm going to show you around.
Are you?
I'm going to help you out.
Types not Unix?
Plenty of them. Yes,
really?
type not Unix.
GNU? I'm telling you, we keep doing this. Richard's going to fucking show up, man.
Richard's named everything with that horrible joke.
Once he shows up, he never leaves.
But he stays nicely on the couch.
He's like, these donuts are they free donuts? Yes, Richard, have a fucking donut. Free like beer. God damn it, Richard. Just eat a fucking donut. I'm sick of your goddamn free beer jokes. That's what he really has, right? He's got the what is it? An acronym, a self-referencing. What do you call it? Self-referencing acronym. Is that what GNU is? There's a name for it.
Yes.
And then you've got free beer.
GNU, not Linux, and that's what GNU's not. Sorry, GNU.
Freudian slip right there. GNU. GNU's not Linux. You're right about that, buddy.
He wouldn't believe that.
He would not know.
He thinks Linux is part of GNU.
But he's got that in the free beer thing, right?
He always says that thing about the free beer. Free software, but not in the way of free beer, whatever that means.
So there's this other interesting thing.
It makes sense when I read it. I always go, yeah, okay, I understand what he's saying.
I mean, I say this in jest, but it's really trying to figure out what is a fake photo.
Yes.
And I think this is going to change. Our definition is going to change real fast. Have you looked at like in painting and out painting? Do you know what this is?
I don't even know what that is.
Wow, this is super cool. So imagine you give it a frame of something. Doesn't matter what it is.
Okay.
It could be
any image,
a cropped photo, something with generative art. Doesn't matter. And then you say, I want to paint more of the frame. And
paint more of the frame?
Yes.
Oh, so extends the edges.
Yes. So you can basically be like, here's a photo of Jeff, whatever it is, kitchen table. But then I want to like create the kitchen next to him. And it'll use the photo as the input. and then you give it a prompt, and then it will augment it and build out the rest of the frame.
Sure.
Which is really kind of crazy cool.
There's this like smart pace thing in GIMP where like if I would take a photo of myself on the beach and there's 100 other people there and I want to pretend like I'm on the beach alone, I can tell it to smart replace.
Oh, that's great.
And so now there's no people. There's just me on the beach.
Oh, I thought.
And by the way, that's on an actual desktop computer.
Sure.
Google now has that in the Pixel.
Wow.
On their phone, you can do that.
It'd be cool if it replaced all those 100 people with little versions of you.
Well, I'm sure I could do that.
We're trying to get the bugs out.
Replace all their faces.
You're like, I just want to be alone. Like, here you go. There's 100 of you.
I could load in like 100 pictures of me from all different angles, and then whichever way those people are looking, they could have my face looking whichever way they want.
I don't think you need to load in 100 of them. I think you need to load in one, and it figures it out.
Sure.
I mean, you've seen the text or still image with text to create video.
Yeah.
Look, it's not perfect,
but it's pretty good.
But it's pretty damn good.
It's it'll be way better next year.
It's crazy.
It's incredible how fast those software is iterating.
You add that to like all the, we've got the Drake and Weekend song. I just sent you
the Drake and Weekend song did nothing for me.
How about Sinatra singing Little John?
Yeah.
I almost fell out of my chair when I heard that.
There's a lot of really good Sinatra impersonators. I'm not sure that AI is necessarily more efficient than just hiring, Charlie, who does Sinatra's voice perfectly.
Sinatra voice.
There's so many people who,
good. But you're very close. I mean, this is a digression. We talk about this all the time. You're very close to having like a couple gigabyte image sitting on your device, your laptop, your phone, whatever, that just does this for you. Whatever it is you want. Just be like, I want to hear,
it's coming to your phone.
I know,
that's the
which is
remarkable
crazy.
part.
It might come to your watch,
right? And maybe even locally computed on your phone.
That's
so
what I
it's
mean.
not even reaching out
now.
to do the computation on the internet.
That's right now. I do generative art on my laptop using an i9 chip. Yeah, it takes a minute, but I'm creating content and never leaving my machine.
Future's so bright, I have to wear shades. And if I don't have any of that, the AI can just add them.
Totally. I wear sunglasses at night. Our pop references are all 20 years old.
That's almost 40.
I need to have a moment. Can we pause this for a moment? I'm on my second 30, clearly. Jesus. Okay, so I don't feel like you have a clear line for when a photo becomes fake. Like
of course. Because
when you start doing like smart fill and shit like that, like what?
Even before you get to that, think about the high dynamic range photo.
Sure,
it's taking like 8 photos, 8 different exposures, and assembling all the pieces that are
HDR.
So that all of the different exposures are the right exposure for whatever that object is in the photo.
Yeah. So is that a fake photo?
Of course it is. It's 8 photos.
But what does it make it? What's fake about it? That's the line.
I have no idea. But you.
If I take a picture,
I'm saying
you
crossed that line way before you're saying
that line's crossed. Okay.
That line's way.
But if I take a photo of you, like a regular glass to a sensor,
before AI is replacing the moon,
and I change 3 pixels in Photoshop, is that a fake photo?
3 pixels?
Yeah.
How many pixels total is if it's a 5-pixel photo? Yes.
Okay. No. So is it a proportion issue?
I don't know.
Is it like a third? Like if it's a 50 megapixel photo, and you're like, well, I touched a third of them.
I made that up. I have no idea.
Oh, no, I'm just saying it's tough. It's not clear to me what's a fake photo when you have all these other tricks we've been doing for 100 years with photos,
right?
With lights and gels and
the lights and gels thing. I'm okay with that. That doesn't strike me as a fake photo.
Okay.
But when you're actually just swapping out, the moon, and not even a human is doing this in Photoshop or a photo editor. This is the software doing it automatically. So is there any way to turn that off?
What do you mean?
What if I want the actual ball of yarn in the sky that the moon looks like normally in a photo? I can never turn that off.
Nope,
anytime the moon is in my shot, I get replaced with.
Wait till they start putting ads in it.
Oh well, that's coming.
That's right. That's what's there next.
Stand by. So Samsung is the only faking that's happening in technology then?
It's just Samsung.
Is that true?
That's
just
it. I got nothing else. My other favorite one has been, and I'm sure everyone has seen these, all these AI bots running around on Twitter posting just random shit. Have you seen these?
Well, I see lots of bots on Twitter, but it's a lot of times it's stuff I like. Like I subscribe to Dog every hour.
Sure.
And I subscribe to, Otter every hour. Do you ever look at the Otter? The
Otter every hour?
Oh, dude, I'm going to send you the link to this.
Is there an otter like a picture of an otter every hour?
It's the best thing on the internet. It's why the internet was invented.
The part though that really hit me on this was seeing one of these bots that posted what was clearly a error response from ChatGPT.
Error response.
Error.
Okay.
What did I say? Error.
Error. Like it was it inherited something.
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was like, and I will get 12% of the will. There was a Twitter user, I think John Scott Railton, posted a couple weeks ago. He said, search for, quote, as an AI language model. And if you do that, you end up getting all of these posts.
Every single AI post, every single large language model that has told you.
Failure. Again, not the good ones. Right. The good ones get through. Yeah.
As an AI large language model.
You went down the rabbit hole of like searching for like not a recognized word or violates OpenAI's content policy. I think that was my favorite.
Oh, that's
where
awesome.
you just search for that, and then what happens, or what he was sort of suggesting, is you look at one of these accounts that outputs, and then go look at the whole account history, and you can make the presumption that all of it is just garbage coming out of an AI.
Right.
And it's just like echo chamber, all this shit of just it.
Well,
there's
whole like news sites that are just making up stories that they're getting from AI. They don't have writers.
Yep, just riling people up,
and you're just getting largely garbage.
So I thought this was all sort of interesting, but the thing that he said towards the end that made me pause, like literally take a pause for a second or two, was something along the lines of, he said, "Remember, AI-based bots are as bad as they will ever be today."
Oh, that's
true. They will only get better.
That's true.
And then you're like, oh shit, he's right.
Yeah,
like
that's how this works.
Like these are terrible.
Yeah.
And they're only going to improve at lightning fast, exceeding Moore's law sort of speed.
I don't know how much
speed.
better the writing will get somewhat better, but I don't know if it's ever going to get to the point where you want a news story from a AI.
You've got some ethics implications with that, certainly. I'm
more than ethics.
I just
sometimes the AI just doesn't have the latest. There's an actual human doing reporting. That's useful.
Sure. Well, it depends on the human.
An AI just telling me things, unless it's like historical things, then fine. The AI can probably do that pretty well.
Well, okay, but there are plenty of shitty humans reporting too. I don't think human doesn't make you a good reporter.
No, of course, but good reporters, that's going to be really hard to mimic that in an AI.
I don't know, man. I'm optimistic. I think they're going to get there. Yeah. Okay, the other thing that I came across from a tech cheating perspective, and this is absolutely fascinating if you're a nerd, is what I believe is the world's first DEF-erect database. So what does that mean?
DEF-erect database.
Yes, this is from the fine folks over at DEFI-Yield, which is all where you've got decentralized finance, right? So DEFI, decentralized finance, and they've tried to create a database of all of the sort of scams that have happened in the decentralized finance world.
Gotcha.
Right? Malicious project owners, whatnot. So what's crazy about this is there were more than 2,500 scams, hacks, and exploits that have happened over this, the past whatever, since they started tracking things, I guess. They've got a full breakdown. You can click in on these and see a full breakdown of all the sort of technical issues that have occurred. Their total number, $77 billion lost.
Wow.
Right? Just in decentralized finance, which to me is crazy.
Right.
They've grouped these into event types. And I thought that was fascinating to see that there's so many of a given type of scam.
Okay, that's
there's
what I was
an event
wondering.
type. Yeah. And like there's one that was this.
The biggest one has to be private equity.
That's the biggest.
Because that's a big scam. That's a huge.
Private equity and hedge funds are right up at the top.
Right.
They put those guys right at the top. It was just behind Wells Fargo. Their biggest category was the Wells Fargo scam.
How to take money from your clients' pockets and put it into your
pockets.
Yes.
Yeah. And then take it right off the customers' yachts and put it onto yours, I think is how they word it. But it was pretty crazy to see this. And it's anything from like stuff that I would argue is maybe doesn't have the intent of being a scam, like abandoned projects, right? We've seen this in open source for forever. But then things that are clearly hacks and exploits, smart contract exploits, flash loan attacks, right? Where somebody will come in, imbalance the whole sort of ecosystem.
NFTs.
It's NFTs. NFTs is another category. Sure. Man, you're going to piss off Gary Vee. I hope Gary Vee isn't listening. And we're going to get some angry voicemail from Gary. And of course, bank runs, right? Like that's another one on these where you see it. Anyway, it was just a couple ways that tech is cheating us currently. And it goes back to the Arthur C. Clarke quote that I love so much, which is that any new tech should be indistinguishable from magic. People just don't know, right? So they're glomming onto it, going, "Oh man, BTC isn't the place. Now I need to get into whatever cat coin," and they go in all in on cat coin. Yeah, sure, and then just have their lunch eaten.
As much as you might not like the Federal Reserve keeping the currency somewhat stable, it's pretty great.
Sure. Now, with the exception of this, of course, it'd be nonsense coin.
No, of course, no. That's as
better
stable
than the
as
reserve.
It gets. Right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're actually talking about pegging gold to nonsense coin.
They should do that,
which I think would make a lot of sense.
That will help.
Did we just commit a felony? I think that was a felony, right? I'm not sure. I think just suggesting
There'll be someone come banging at the door in a second.
FINRA here? Yeah, they're here. They're my ride. Great. All right. Well, up next, Jeff's going to talk about the pinballing effects of AI's growth and how right, and how AI is going to bump into other realms and affect them.
Absolutely. Stand by.
I'm very excited.
Everybody's heard about AI affecting search. or image generation, or making Harrison Ford look younger in a movie, or doing research for a lawyer on an important case, or writing copy for a real estate agent. But in fact, you might be more accurate thinking of AI as a pinball bouncing around, affecting nearly everything it comes into contact with.
What is this AI you speak of?
Artificial intelligence. There are going to be a lot of things that AI affects that are going to be pretty obvious, like things you would expect.
Yes.
Pictures of the Pope in a nice coat.
Dope Francis.
The
best thing I've ever seen.
So obviously there's like going to be deep fakes and
Can
things.
we shut down AI now that it's done that? I feel like once it did that, that's
completed
the end.
its mission?
That's it.
Sure.
Once I saw Dope Francis.
We got our money's worth.
We got it. Like, hey, Sam, shut it down, buddy.
Several $100 billion worth of research and we're done.
Dope
It's
Francis.
over.
Yep. Okay.
You've hit peak AI.
This is why I'm not running OpenAI, by the way.
Sure. So there's going to be some things that it affects that are more obvious, and there are going to be some things that are maybe less so. So I wanted to talk about some of the things we think AI will actually have an effect on that maybe not quite as obvious as other things.
I mean, isn't the answer really everything?
Pretty close. Pretty close.
I mean, is there really, I think it'd be an easier segment talking about the things that it's just absolutely not going to affect.
Name some things it's not going to affect.
I don't even know if I can think of one.
Cooking?
Baking bread, absolutely.
How will it affect baking bread?
They'll tell me what ingredients to put in to make the better bread that I want.
Okay.
Altitude,
but
humidity.
Don't people do that? Oh, because you could have a lot of variables
Inputs?
there. Yeah,
sure.
It could fix the variables for you.
I mean, I'm not saying that would necessarily be worth the 7 Venezuelans of power that I use to calculate that. But
it's not.
I'm not trying to balance that equation right now.
It's not a ledger for Bitcoin. It doesn't take that much power.
No. I'm not making fake fungible, non-fungible tokens.
Let me jump to one that I was thinking that it will affect. Something we've been working on for decades, quantum computing.
Yeah.
Computers basically deal with binary transistors. They're open, they're closed. I mean, they're on, they're off, they're open, they're closed.
I wouldn't say basically. I would say they do. Period. Full stop.
Sure. And we've been working really hard to make that not the case. We want to have multiple positions. We want to have
analog.
Well, not analog,
but if you really, it kind of is,
because it's got to be precise. It can't have the variability of analog. But we want to have multiple positions for those. And now that will expand our ability to compute.
Missionary.
That will expand our ability to compute vastly.
Yeah.
The computers will get enormously more powerful when we figure out how to do that.
Yep.
We will figure out how to do that. AI, I think, is something that can really help us figure out how to get there.
For sure.
AI is a great physicist.
Yeah.
That's one of the skills it will really...
Do you think that's because it's so black and white? Like that's why...
That physics is so black and white? Yeah, of course.
And that's why AI has like math and...
Massive leg up because it is black and white. And it can go through all the permutations of all
instantly,
the different ways you might make transistors that will be, that will have multi-state.
Interesting. But that still doesn't get you quantum computing.
Get you closer.
Get you closer to it.
Get you closer faster.
Yeah.
We have sort of quantum computers now, but they're nothing like where we'll have after AI starts chewing away at the different ways we might make this thing.
I mean, there is this is a silly thought experiment that I think only I like, but I'm going to say it here anyway. You think about like compilers. I always think about compilers.
Yeah.
When you have to compile the compiler, you use a compiler.
Sure.
Well, which one came first? And more importantly, the thought experiment
Grace Hopper wrote the first one.
It's still out there. It's in GitHub. It's got 1,000 stars. If you lose that first compiler, so let's say you have this event where you just lose all of the source code of all of the compilers.
Yeah.
They're just all gone.
Yeah.
All the compilers are gone.
Yeah.
What the fuck do you do? Where do you start? You've got to start somewhere.
Well, your chip manufacturer makes a compiler with all the new instructions that they include in each version of the chip. They have to.
So you've got all the instructions.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you're like in assembly and you're writing a thing that does some basic interpretation, but then you take the input to that thing.
It's an enormous amount of work if you have to drop back to square one.
But you can go back to square one and say, I'm going to make up numbers. You just put 10 instructions into it, 10 C instructions. Then you write...
That really is risk. That really is a reduced instruction set.
But then you write version 2 of the compiler in this limited C that then now supports 20 instructions.
Sure.
And then
we bootstrap it all the way up.
Bootstrap it all the way up, right? And I'm always sort of fascinated by that.
When I started programming, you would take some of the C sometimes and get out of the C because the compiler wasn't efficient enough.
Assembly.
And you could do it by hand
that's because
faster. That's not true anymore.
Yeah, you were working on B-52s back then, if I remember the story correctly. I don't understand why that was the weirdest child labor ever during the war.
B-52 computer was the first thing I programmed on.
Yeah,
that's very true. It was not in the plane. It was in the classroom.
Yeah, you helped defeat the South, I think, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
The Union got right in there.
With my punch tape B-52 computer programs.
Hey, your story, bud. So I tell this silly compiler story because I think about how you're going to use a modern day AI to help build a better chip.
Yeah.
And then you build a better chip, and then you pretty quickly forget about the old chip, right? Like you just keep doing that.
Because the AI is now
just going to build a better chip.
Makes a better, and the better chip makes a better AI and vice versa.
And then there's like 2 or 3 steps in the middle that are unclear to me, and then you get the Terminator. And that's it, and it's over.
Just Arnold walking around in a leather jacket.
And everybody just goes, oh, God, I talk about this nonsense. And and then it's just an Austrian dude with a heavy accent just comes over. That's it.
Which never made any sense.
I
Because
am the gatekeeper. You're like, wrong movie, buddy.
if you were making a Terminator, you
Yeah.
would make him so he fit in. You would not make him so he stood out. He would never be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, that's
you want him to hide in the crowd so that people don't know that's the Terminator.
There's a reason James Cameron's James Cameron and you're you, because I'm pretty sure that movie would suck.
Because James Cameron couldn't raise money to have someone
He
else
totally
be the
couldn't.
Terminator.
No. He's like, you don't speak English. Come over here. Let's do this.
For Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Such a great story on how they got that made. Yeah. No, that is a way less interesting movie. Just have it be like John Q. Smith, who's just like the Terminator.
The growing importance of cybersecurity, because AI is going to take script kiddies and let them actually be dangerous. Because now it's going to do programming for you.
100% agree with that. I'm not sure. No one gives a flying fuck about cybersecurity.
You're going to care about it.
I want to believe you.
When it starts coming after your bank balance, you're going to care a lot.
Yeah. I think you just make it someone else's problem is what we seem to do. Nobody seems to take ownership on this.
Right.
People still use password 123 for their fucking passwords. People that I jaw at constantly.
Yeah, most password places where you enter passwords will stop you from doing that now.
Yeah, I mean, you've got better solutions, right? Like passkeys that I think will ultimately alleviate that.
Oh, my word. Have you tried Google Passkey?
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
It's great.
I can't believe we didn't have this 10 years. Who just thought of this? How come we didn't have this 10 years ago?
It's a long haul to get those integrated. And I think
it's
that's what
really
they're
great.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's going to be able, you can use it, you'll be able to use it on websites shortly. Use it for all kinds of things.
Your house, your car,
Bye-bye
your
passwords.
Office. Yeah.
That's really great.
That is really the answer.
I'm really impressed by this.
Why are you impressed by it? Because it took so long?
No, because it's so useful.
Oh, yeah. It's super
so useful. And it's really secure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a big difference. It is a big jump forward.
Many years ago, 7, 8 years ago, I looked at trying to go after this space and start a business to literally do this because I'm like, passwords are just dead. But then the FIDO Alliance was created. And I saw what they were doing. I'm like, oh, these guys are going to win.
This is the FIDO Alliance.
It is the
this
FIDO
is
Alliance. Yeah.
what this is.
They're going to win. Like, because you need
100%.
everybody to be playing in that same ecosystem.
And what they've made is really
super cool.
Terrific.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, so cybersecurity, that's going to be important, but AI is going to help you. You know, you're going to fight that war from both sides with.
I mean, you're going to have
AI.
more cyber attacks, that's for sure.
You'll have more cyber attacks, but
you're going to find way more.
You'll be able to fend off more of them with AI. It's going to be a two-way war.
0 day. I mean, that's all this. It's all cat and mouse, right? It's all going to be this war of these things going at each other.
Healthcare.
Anything with data, right? So especially healthcare, like telemetry.
That's what I'm saying. Combine AI with big data.
Yeah.
And you've got something really amazing.
Totally.
The ability to diagnose health issues way earlier than a human doctor could.
I mean, this is, you're in sci-fi land. You're in sci-fi land when my watch says, hey, don't be alarmed. You're going to have a heart attack in 3 hours.
Oh, sure.
And you're just like, fuck.
And it's going to know. It's going to know with a fair degree of accuracy. Yeah.
And that's great.
You might want to get to a hospital, say after you run a few of your errands, drive on over to Cedars and check yourself in because that heart attack's coming. It's also going to help you develop new treatments and more, cures and things, more medications. It's going to be huge for healthcare.
Sure.
Education, in the same way that AI can diagnose health issues, it can also be used to diagnose educational issues. You will be able to look at individual students and realize, this guy isn't quite getting the quadratic equation or whatever it is. We need to give him more education on this.
Sure.
And the kids who are falling
Tailored
behind,
education too.
Yes.
100%. Meet them where they are. This is great. This is why I'm so excited about that story earlier about New York saying, hey, we're actually going to use AI for good and not just, there's a great opportunity there.
All right, we have to get out of here, but quickly before we do, have you seen or read anything good this last week?
Not seen or read, but listened to.
Oh, that's a whole new realm.
Right?
If you drive around a lot, podcasts are just
lovely.
Best.
I mean, I usually watch TV shows while I'm driving, but then the podcast.
That's always safe.
Yeah, totally safe.
Sure.
You can prop the iPad right up in front of the steering wheel.
Nice.
It's a good spot
for
it.
Put it up in front of the windshield.
Or the glasses. Yeah, exactly. No, I listened to, as you know, I'm a big Smartless fan. I listened to Paul Anka on Smartless.
Yes.
I knew a little about Paul Anka.
If people don't know who that is, he's an incredible songwriter.
Amazing, right? So he starts his story sort of with his journey of like working for the mob, right, in Vegas, hanging out with the Rat
Wasn't
Pack.
everybody in
Vegas working for the mob?
Basically in show business was working for the mob.
Which I always thought was sort of a wives' tale, but he's like, no.
But I think it's true.
It's 100% true. And then he tells a story about Michael Jackson stealing song masters from him.
Oh my goodness.
And how those came back. And then he would just be like, yeah, you're going to give me half of that. Like,
because Michael Jackson was going to use him
because he stole them and used them 20 years
later.
later. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And then the other part that I didn't know is that Jason Bateman on Smartless is married to Paul Anka's daughter. I had no idea.
Is that right?
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
So she's getting some of that Michael Jackson money.
Presumably. Anyway, it's crazy. It was really good, really, really good. And that dude is 10x prolific. I mean, you can't even call him prolific. He's well beyond that.
Is he still writing?
He he's still performing. He's still
I know,
writing.
but is he
Yeah.
still putting
Yeah.
out new material?
It
That's
sounds
really,
like he is.
really cool.
You should listen. How about you? What have you seen?
I saw the movie Pinball, The Man Who Saved the Game.
Yeah.
Were you a pinball player when you were a kid?
Still love pinball.
Absolutely love pinball. Pinball was illegal in most large cities.
Why?
In New York City, a guy named LaGuardia, yes,
Okay.
there's an airport named after him, needed a political victory. So
Big pinballs? What he went after?
big pinball is what he went after because
Why?
he kept saying, well, it's gambling. It's all about gambling. Pinball had nothing to do with gambling. Pinball was invented during the Depression to try to give people something to do, cheap entertainment, and some sense that they had some
It's a
control.
fucking ball in gravity.
Yeah, some sense that they had some sort of control over their lives. 15, 20 years after the Depression, it was an easy thing that he could go after. They literally took the legs off the pinball machines that they broke
that's just mean.
and turned them into billy clubs for the police to use.
The irony of this. That's crazy.
Okay, so recently divorced Roger Sharp lands a new job and his girlfriend Ellen, to whom he confesses his love for pinball.
Okay.
To his horror, Roger finds out pinball was banned in New York City, leading to a showdown in City Hall as Roger and his fantastic mustache seek to prove that pinball is not a game of chance, but a game of skill.
What year is
It's a love story and not just between a man and a machine.
It's a true story?
It's a true story.
From what time period? Like the
70s.
50s? 70s.
Yeah. He was a writer for GQ.
So wait, in the 70s, they were still banned in New York?
Pinball machines in New York would be like in XXX film houses.
Oh, I wouldn't. I've never been one of those.
Because they had the windows darked out.
Wow.
And so that's where you could have the pinball machine. And then the police would find out there's pinball machines in there, and there'd be a raid on the place for having pinball machines.
Wow.
Not because of the crazy XXS
That's
stuff that's
crazy.
in this. Yeah, but because they had a pinball machine. They would throw the pinball machine, make a big demonstration out of destroying this glass and everything else on the street.
Absolutely bonkers.
They actually wouldn't let you win free games either, because that was consideed part of the gambling.
I mean, pinball's such an innocuous...
really lovely movie.
Promptly afterwards, they banned milk.
Exactly.
What the fuck did milk do to you?
Eye-hand coordination. They were against that.
Totally.
That's the episode.
Thank you for joining us for all this nonsense. A truly terrible podcast from The Awful Company. Visit us on the web at nonsense.productions. I'm Stitch Little.
I'm Jeff Parker.
If you like this program, please follow, download, subscribe, and like at Apple, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or our favorite, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Podcastindex.org. Special thanks to our floor director, Patrick O'Neill.
I knew that was O'Neill. What's he doing here? All right, well, we'll be here every Thursday morning for more nonsense. Please join us. Oh, this is my last show. I'm going to go become a fish inspector. Tell you what happens next.